Raducanu stood frozen. Alexandra had just spoken, and those words detonated across the entire tennis universe. Nobody anticipated that a post-match conversation between two of women's tennis's most magnetic personalities would ignite this kind of firestorm. One woman built her legacy on a single miraculous fortnight at the 2021 U.S. Open. The other is dismantling every ceiling women's tennis ever placed over Southeast Asia. One shocking victory at a time. Two worlds colliding, one sentence that neither player nor the watching public could walk back from. What exactly did Aya reveal? What silenced Raducanu so completely that even her closest circle had no answer prepared? Stay locked in, because this story does not go where you think. To understand the electricity crackling between Emma Raducanu and Alexandra, you have to go back further than any single match. You have to understand what each of these women represents, not just to their countries, but to the entire architecture of modern women's tennis. September 2021, Flushing Meadows. An 18-year-old with a wild card, 0 Grand Slam match wins to her name, walks onto Arthur Ashe Stadium and proceeds to do something that statisticians and tennis historians still struggle to categorize rationally. Emma Raducanu won the U.S. Open without dropping a set, not one, across 10 consecutive matches against professionals. It remains one of the most statistically impossible athletic achievements in the sport's recorded history. Overnight, she didn't simply become a tennis star. She became a cultural symbol. Young girls across Britain, across Asia, across every corner of the world, where girls grow up believing the ceiling above them is permanent, suddenly looked up and saw it shatter. Raducanu's face was everywhere. Magazine covers, primetime television, global brand campaigns. Unilever signed her, HSBC, Porsche. The commercial apparatus of professional sport wrapped itself around her before she had even played another competitive match. That is the magnitude of what one fortnight created. But sport is brutally indifferent to legacy. The years that followed were a chronicle of injury, coaching instability, and ranking fluctuations that would test even the most battle-hardened athlete. Wrist surgery, back complications, a carousel of coaches, reportedly over a dozen in 3 years. Each departure carrying fresh speculation, fresh criticism, fresh question marks in the British press. Each time Raducanu seemed poised to recapture something approaching that 2021 form, another setback arrived. By early 2026, she sat ranked inside the top 30. Respectable by any rational measure, yet somehow perpetually framed as underachievement against the impossible standard of that one golden fortnight. Meanwhile, on the other side of the planet, something was assembling quietly. A 20-year-old from the Philippines trained at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca was building a game designed not for a single incredible week, but for a decade of dominance. Alexandra Eala arrived at the 2025 Miami Open as a wild card and proceeded to eliminate 3 Grand Slam champions. She reached the semi-final. She became the first Filipino woman to crack the WTA Top 100, the first to defeat a top 10 opponent, the first to reach a WTA semifinal. She did all of it before she had even turned 21. The comparisons began immediately. Tennis media, fan forums, social platforms, all gravitating toward the same irresistible question. Was Alexandra the successor to the throne that Raducanu once occupied so briefly and so brilliantly? Was the new face of women's tennis already walking the earth, quiet and smiling, completely aware of exactly what she was doing? That question hung unresolved until Miami 2026 changed everything. Stop for a second, because what happened next at the Miami Open is the reason you clicked this video, and it is far more layered than any headline captured. The Miami Open 2026, the tournament that 12 months earlier had launched Aya into global consciousness as a wild card nobody saw coming. This time she returned not as a surprise, but as a seeded player, a marked woman, a target every opponent had spent months studying. The expectations had transformed entirely. The clouds that followed her in Miami 2025, which Sky Sports tennis presenter Gigi Salmon described as phenomenal, returned, but denser, louder, more electric. Aya moved through her early rounds with surgical precision. Her second-round contest against Laura Sigand became its own story within the story. Sigand, 38 years old, a veteran operator renowned for psychological warfare on court, pushed Aya into a 3.5-hour battle that tested every dimension of the Filipina's composure. When Sigand began flouting the shot clock, breaching the 25-second limit on 85% of her service points, Aya walked directly to the umpire's chair and demanded accountability. Can you watch her time? Because many times she's delaying. I was about to serve and she turned around. Direct, composed, unintimidated. Aya 1676363. And in her post-match interview, she said something that revealed the full architecture of her character. It means the world to me, and it says a lot of my progress and how I've developed as a player and as a person. When I came into Miami last year as a wild card, now I'm in the third round again. So I am really happy, and especially having been able to compete at this level today against an amazing fighter. No bitterness, no grievance, pure clarity about her own trajectory. Then came the draw, Raducanu, the player who once carried every expectation Aya now shoulders. The British icon whose star, according to multiple analysts and a Tennis Gazette reader poll revealing Aya held over 89% of fan support against Raducanu's 11%, appeared to be dimming while Aya's blazed brighter by the week. Two players whose symbolic weight extended far beyond their rankings. Scheduled confirmed inevitable. The tennis world did not sleep the night before. Here is where the story fractures in a direction nobody predicted. Keep watching. The match itself was a masterclass in contrasting philosophies. Raducanu, elegant and attacking, attempted to seize rhythm immediately. Her ground strokes carrying genuine venom when clean. Her serve finding corners that forced Eala wide. 4 stretches of the first set, the Eastbourne finalist, who had beaten Raducanu in a 3-set battle just months earlier, seemed a distant memory. This was Raducanu functioning near the level that once made the world stand breathless. But Eala absorbed it all. There is a quality in her game that analysts struggle to articulate precisely, an almost unsettling stillness during pressure. She does not rush. She does not panic. She constructs points the way a novelist constructs chapters. Each stroke purposeful, each positioning deliberate, each moment connected to a larger architecture invisible to the opposition until it is already too late. Eala won. The scoreline was tight. The match required every reserve both players possessed. And when the final point landed, the crowd inside the stadium, Filipino flags waving, chants building, produced a sound that shook the venue. Then came the net, the handshake, the private exchange between two competitors at the intersection of two enormously different careers. And in the moments that followed, in her post-match interview, in comments that spread across every tennis platform within hours, Eala revealed what had transpired between them at that net. She described Raducanu's exact words, the acknowledgement, the grace, but also something beneath the surface, something in Raducanu's expression, in the quality of her silence, in the weight behind the professional courtesy of a post-match handshake that Eala articulated with a clarity that stopped the room. She told me she was proud of what I am building, Eala said. And I could see it in her face. She meant every word, but there was something else there, too. Something she couldn't quite say out loud. Raducanu asked directly about the exchange at her own media availability, paused. Not a calculated pause, a genuine one, the kind that occurs when a question reaches somewhere unguarded. She said nothing for several seconds, then smiled. Not the practiced smile of a media-trained athlete managing a difficult moment, but something smaller and more authentic. Alex is extraordinary, she finally said. She knows what she is. That was it. And somehow that restraint communicated more than any prepared statement could have. What Eala revealed didn't stay in that press room. It detonated across every platform simultaneously. And what fans did with it is what truly exposed how much this dynamic has evolved. Within 48 hours, the clip of Eala's post-match comments accumulated millions of views. Tennis Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, platforms that rarely converge on a single tennis story simultaneously, all gravitated toward the same footage. The moment Eala described that Raducanu couldn't quite say out loud became the most discussed phrase in tennis discourse that week. Fan communities fracture predictably along loyalty lines during moments like these. Raducanu supporters, a genuinely devoted, long-established base built across years of extraordinary personal investment in her story, pushed back. They argued that Eala's characterization of the handshake moment was an overstep, that what happened at the net was private, that describing a competitor's facial expression in a public forum crossed an unspoken boundary between athletes. Eala's fan base, vast, young, ferociously protective, and growing daily, countered with force. They pointed to the poll 89% to 11%. A gap so staggering it required no elaboration. They pointed to the trajectory Eala ranked and rising. Sponsors accumulating a U.S. Open first-round Grand Slam win already recorded. An Eastbourne final reached a WTA Tour producing moments that analysts compared to the arrival of a Michael Jordan-level figure in the Philippines. The generational dimension ignited simultaneously. Commentators, former players, sports journalists, all drawn into a conversation about inheritance, about what it means when a sport's new defining personality emerges not from the nations that traditionally manufacture tennis royalty, but from Southeast Asia, from a country where tennis courts are not yet ubiquitous, where the infrastructure of elite development requires extraordinary individual sacrifice. Eala's message to the girls watching had been consistent. Anything is possible and dream big. Those words delivered originally after her U.S. Open breakthrough now carried an entirely different resonance beside a story involving the player who once embodied that exact sentiment for a different generation. The most searching question circulating through all the noise was simpler than any of the heated debate. Was Raducanu's silence at that press room table not avoidance but recognition? Was she sitting with a truth